you'll see that everyone bows and curtsies to the king when Camilla passes. And that was because they were angry with Camilla. All the people get the crown on her head were excluded from that coronation.
The council chamber had witnessed disagreements before, but never a betrayal this calculated. Princess Anne sat motionless as Camilla accused her of secretly undermining Catherine's future authority and demanded that she be removed from a powerful royal committee. Catherine was not even in the room to defend the woman being attacked in her name. Then Charles opened the sealed council summary, discovered what had happened behind his back, and lost control in front of everyone. Before we go deeper into what this really means for the royal family, make sure to subscribe so you don't miss a single update. Charles had been delayed by a confidential audience, a private meeting the monarch could not abandon. That absence left Camilla, Anne, William, Edward, and advisors to begin a council session on ceremonial duties. The Royal Continuity Council was a group coordinating responsibilities during periods of pressure. Its decisions shaped who represented the crown and who stood closest to the institution's future. Anne understood that weight better than anyone. The Princess Royal had built her influence through decades of discipline, honesty, and service. She had never depended on charm or headlines. When the family needed someone to accept an exhausting schedule or carry a burden without complaint, she was the person they trusted. That history made Camilla's accusation an attack on everything Anne believed she had earned. Camilla did not hesitate. The Queen Consort declared that Anne had encouraged Catherine to resist her authority and demanded her removal before the absent Princess of Wales discovered that her name had been used. Anne felt humiliation burn beneath her expression, yet she refused to give the monarch's wife an angry outburst. She pressed both hands flat against the table and asked whether Camilla was presenting evidence or delivering a personal complaint. William looked toward Catherine's empty chair and felt the trap close around him. The prince realized his wife's trust in Anne had been twisted into a weapon while she was deliberately kept outside the room. Before he could challenge the claim, Camilla produced a prepared suspension motion. The typed pages proved the attack had been planned before the meeting began. Charles entered moments later and sensed the silence. An advisor handed the king the sealed summary, and his face changed as he read the accusation. He gripped the paper and demanded to know who had authorized Catherine's name to be used. Camilla began to answer, but he cut her off, threw the suspension motion onto the table, and ordered the doors closed. Nobody would leave until the truth was exposed, and the attempt to isolate Anne was about to uncover every fear and divided loyalty in the room. Behind the formal titles were 4 people facing 4 different betrayals. Anne believed her lifetime of service had been reduced to a political obstacle. William saw Catherine's name weaponized while she was absent. Camilla feared that the future monarchy was quietly closing around her. And Charles, trapped between his wife, his sister, and his heir, understood that any decision he made would wound someone he loved and reveal who he truly trusted. Charles looked at Anne and remembered how often she had stood beside him when others stepped back. The king and his sister had been shaped by childhood pressure, public duty, and years of carrying burdens they could never discuss openly. She challenged him when courtiers simply agreed, and he relied on her whenever the crown demanded more than one person could bear. The crown meant the institution of monarchy itself, not merely the object worn at a coronation. Catherine had found the same honesty in Anne. The Princess of Wales saw her as a mentor who never softened the truth to make it easier. She taught Catherine how to endure criticism, protect her dignity, and separate real service from palace performance. That bond mattered because it gave the future queen confidence beyond William's protection. And Camilla had begun to see that confidence as a threat. Camilla had studied the revised duty schedule alone before the meeting. The queen consort noticed William and Catherine placed at the center of future engagements, while her own role appeared narrower. A duty schedule was the official plan assigning public responsibilities to working royals. To her, those pages did not represent organization. They suggested that the monarchy was already preparing to move beyond her. Anne felt something deeper than anger after the accusation. The Princess Royal remembered cancelled holidays, exhausting journeys, and years of choosing duty over comfort. She did not fear losing a council seat. She feared learning that loyalty could be erased the moment it became inconvenient. William kept his expression controlled, but one phrase in the suspension motion struck him immediately. The prince had seen the same wording inside a confidential memo prepared for his household. That meant someone with private access had helped build Camilla's case. When the council secretary admitted Catherine had never received the revised agenda, he understood the cruelty of the plan. Her absence had been arranged so others could speak in her name. Charles read the accusations again and saw the pattern. Every supposed offense involved Anne defending Catherine's right to decide for herself. What looked like insubordination now resembled a campaign against anyone strengthening the future queen. Anne finally turned toward her brother. She did not plead, protest, or ask for mercy. Instead, she asked Charles to read every accusation aloud. Her calm request forced Camilla to face words she had expected to remain hidden, and it pointed toward the earlier encounter that had transformed quiet rivalry into open warfare. 3 weeks before the council explosion, a private reception at Windsor had ended with a conversation almost nobody witnessed. Catherine had been pressured to approve a ceremonial announcement she believed would confuse the future hierarchy of the crown. Anne stepped between her and Camilla, closed the folder, and said the decision would wait for William's return. That single gesture lasted only seconds. But for the Queen Consort, it became an unforgivable declaration that Anne had chosen Catherine's future over her present authority. Catherine entered the Windsor reception expecting routine approvals. The gathering brought together senior royal patrons, meaning family members responsible for supporting charities and public causes. One document, however, would expand Camilla's control over initiatives traditionally linked to the heir's household. That mattered because those charities helped define the public role William and Catherine were preparing to carry. William had left for an emergency briefing. The prince believed the remaining business was ceremonial, yet his absence left Catherine surrounded by advisors pressing her to approve the revised announcement before evening. She read the same paragraph twice and felt the pressure tightening. Camilla placed a pen beside her and insisted the decision could not wait. Anne moved before anyone else spoke. The Princess Royal closed the folder with one firm motion and said no paper affecting the future queen's responsibilities would be signed under pressure or without William's review. A future queen was the royal woman expected to serve beside the next monarch. Catherine said nothing, but Anne noticed her shoulders relax as the document disappeared from reach. Camilla felt the room turn against her. The Queen Consort saw the intervention not as caution, but as rejection. Only a handful of people had witnessed it, yet she believed Anne had proved that Catherine trusted her judgment more than Camilla's authority. Success had come to the younger woman through growing respect, while the monarch's wife felt her influence shrinking. Catherine thanked Anne privately afterward, and admitted she had felt cornered. The Princess of Wales could not understand why the approval had become so urgent. Camilla then asked Anne to remain behind and warned, in a private conversation with no aides present, that loyalty to the future monarchy could not weaken the reigning one. Anne answered that protecting Catherine from pressure was not disloyalty. Camilla dictated a confidential note that night, recording what she called Anne's pattern of interference. That documented account became the foundation of the suspension motion. On the morning of the council confrontation, Catherine found the altered Windsor paper inside William's briefing case. A handwritten note named Anne as the main obstacle, and by then Charles was preparing to force the confrontation everyone feared. Charles did not summon Camilla and Anne to a drawing room to preserve peace. He brought them together because he no longer trusted what had been said in separate conversations. No secretaries, no council advisors, no edited minutes, only 3 chairs, the suspension paper, and the Windsor folder placed between them. When Camilla repeated that Anne had encouraged Catherine's defiance, the king pushed back his chair and demanded that she stop using his daughter-in-law as a shield. Charles dismissed every aide and ordered the doors closed. The king placed the suspension motion beside the Windsor document, linking the council accusation to the earlier confrontation. A suspension motion was a formal proposal to remove someone temporarily from an official role. This time, no polished minutes would soften what had happened, and no advisor could interrupt when the truth became uncomfortable. Anne spoke first. The Princess Royal described the Windsor reception precisely, explaining that Catherine had been urged to approve a major change without enough time, advice, or William's knowledge. She did not insult Camilla or question her marriage. She simply repeated what had happened and why stepping between Catherine and the document had been necessary. Camilla leaned forward and accused Anne of spending months presenting herself as Catherine's protector while treating the Queen Consort like an intruder. Her voice cracked, exposing the resentment beneath her strategy. Charles asked one question. Had Catherine ever requested Anne's removal? Camilla hesitated. That silence broke his restraint. He rose so quickly that his chair struck the floor and declared that his wife had manipulated the council by speaking for a woman deliberately excluded from it. Anne then repeated the warning Camilla had delivered after Windsor. Loyalty to the future monarchy, she recalled, must not weaken the reigning one. Charles understood. The council motion had not protected royal order. It had punished his sister for refusing to pressure Catherine. Camilla insisted that private conversations with Charles had authorized her to defend her position. The king answered that reassurance was not permission to destroy Anne's reputation or seize Catherine's voice. Before she could respond, the door opened. Catherine entered holding the handwritten notation from the altered document. The Princess of Wales stated calmly that Anne had never encouraged rebellion. She had prevented a decision made under pressure. William had asked her to bring the paper herself, and its language proved that someone had accessed his confidential planning files. Charles turned back to Camilla. He demanded the name of the person who had supplied them. She looked away, and the silence revealed that the confrontation had exposed only the motive. Whoever had helped her could still reshape the royal balance of power. Royal power rarely moves through shouting. It moves through agendas, briefing notes, invitations, and documents placed in the correct hands at the correct time. Camilla's attack on Anne had seemed emotional, but the prepared suspension motion revealed something colder. Someone had provided private schedules, internal language, and access to Catherine's altered invitation. As Charles followed the paper trail, he discovered that the most dangerous person in the conflict was not necessarily the one who had spoken at the council table. Edward studied the motion and recognized a sentence from a draft he had reviewed weeks earlier. The Duke of Edinburgh, a senior working royal who supports the monarch through public duty, knew that copied language could expose who had shaped the accusation. He also understood why the Royal Continuity Council mattered. It held no constitutional authority, meaning it could not make law, but its recommendations influenced duties, patronages, access, and the public position of senior family members. Edward called the council secretary into a private office and asked why Catherine's name had vanished from the final attendance list. The official first described it as an administrative change. Edward placed the original invitation beside the revised version and waited. Control of those papers meant control of the meeting itself. One person entered informed, another arrived unprepared, and an absent voice could be treated as agreement. The secretary's hands began to shake. He admitted that Camilla's private office had ordered Catherine removed from the agenda. The confession did not come through rumor. It was recorded in a signed internal account prepared after Edward's questioning. That document also confirmed that the altered schedule had been distributed before Anne ever entered the council chamber. Charles read the correspondence alone in his study. The king removed his glasses, placed them beside the file, and stared at a note claiming it was the sovereign's preference to proceed without Catherine. No signature supported it. No handwritten instruction existed. No confirmed conversation proved that he had approved anything. A senior aide then provided a documented statement admitting that Camilla had given verbal instructions to exclude Catherine and prepare Anne's suspension motion. The aide believed the queen consort possessed Charles's private approval. He now understood that belief had been used to turn royal reassurance into false authority. Charles lifted his pen. The monarch wrote 3 directives: restore Catherine's place, invalidate the suspension motion, and remove Camilla's office temporarily from continuity planning. When those orders left his desk, the conflict stopped being a family dispute, and consequences began moving through the palace with brutal speed. For Anne, the correction restored her position. For Camilla, it marked the closing door and a punishment she never expected. The punishment was not announced with trumpets, statements, or ceremonial language. It arrived through 3 quiet instructions. Camilla's office lost control of council agendas. Her advisors were removed from succession planning meetings, and the motion against Anne was declared invalid in the king's own handwriting. For the first time since the confrontation began, Camilla sat alone and understood that Charles had not merely rejected her accusation. He had withdrawn the institutional trust that allowed her influence to exist. Camilla received the directives from a private secretary in her sitting room. The queen consort read the first page twice, then lowered it onto her lap. These orders did not alter her title or remove her from public life. They stripped away her control over internal planning, while the palace examined how Catherine's absence and Anne's suspension had been arranged. That mattered, because influence inside the monarchy often depended less on rank than on access. Camilla asked whether Charles intended to speak with her that evening. The secretary could offer no promise. She nodded once, but the silence after his departure cut deeper than any public rebuke. For years, the king had protected her from isolation. Now he was protecting the institution from her choices, and she could feel the difference. Anne received her clearance without celebration. The Princess Royal read the corrected minutes, the official written record of what had happened during the council meeting, and folded the paper carefully. Every reference to her suspension had been removed. Charles had added that the motion was unauthorized and built upon the misuse of Catherine's name. Anne told Edward that clearing her reputation could not erase the attempt to divide the family. William demanded stronger protection. The prince argued that a temporary restriction would not prevent another household from speaking for Catherine later. He wanted a permanent rule requiring her direct approval before anyone used her name in a council paper, duty plan, or formal proposal. Charles resisted moving too quickly. The king feared that harsher sanctions would become public humiliation and destroy what remained of his marriage. He had to defend the crown while facing the woman he had promised never to abandon. Catherine, however, refused to turn pain into revenge. The Princess of Wales told William she wanted Anne protected, the record corrected, and clear boundaries. Not Camilla publicly broken. Camilla made one final move before midnight. She wrote Anne a private note, sealed it herself, and requested a meeting without Charles, William, Catherine, or any palace official present. The next decision would not come from royal authority, but from two women meeting alone at the edge of family collapse, with only the painful truth remaining between them. There were no council papers on the table when Anne entered the small morning room. No advisors waited outside with prepared statements. Camilla stood beside the window, visibly exhausted, and asked the Princess Royal to close the door. For several seconds, neither woman spoke. The silence held years of suspicion, comparison, and unspoken resentment. Then Camilla admitted what Charles had been unable to force from her. She had attacked Anne because she believed Catherine's rise would leave her powerless and forgotten. Anne had agreed to come only after confirming that no secretary would record the conversation. The Princess Royal wanted Camilla's own words, not a polished message shaped by advisors. A morning room was a small private sitting room used for informal meetings, and its intimacy removed every layer of palace protection. Here, neither woman could hide behind procedure. Camilla spoke with unusual bluntness. The Queen Consort admitted that each revised schedule placing Catherine at the center felt like an early rehearsal for her disappearance. Anne had survived royal life by becoming indispensable through work. Camilla had survived by securing Charles's protection. Each woman distrusted the method the other had used to hold her place. Anne listened without interruption, but she did not soften the truth. The Princess Royal acknowledged Camilla's fear, then told her that fear did not justify inventing Catherine's position, borrowing Charles's authority, or trying to destroy another person's reputation. Camilla lowered her eyes. For the first time, she did not argue. Camilla then asked Anne to intervene with the king and persuade him to restore her council access. The Queen Consort waited, while the silence stretched between them. Anne's compassion was real, but accountability mattered more. She refused to request immediate restoration. Anne offered another path. The Princess Royal said she would support a gradual return only after Camilla apologized directly to Catherine, corrected the council record personally, and accepted firm limits around future planning. Those boundaries mattered because trust inside the monarchy depended on knowing that private fear could never again control official decisions. Camilla reached into her pocket and removed a prepared defense letter. The Queen Consort tore it in half and said she would accept every condition. That gesture marked the first moment she stopped trying to win and began accepting responsibility. Anne crossed to the adjoining door and opened it. Catherine was waiting inside. Her unexpected presence stunned Camilla, who had believed this reckoning would come later. Catherine was prepared to hear the apology immediately, but only without excuses or demands for forgiveness. The private confession had changed the crisis. Yet before peace could settle, the outside world was about to discover that something extraordinary had happened. By morning, The palace could no longer contain the consequences. A single photograph showed Camilla leaving the council wing alone, clutching a sealed folder, while Anne and Catherine remained visible behind the glass doors. No statement accompanied the image, yet its meaning seemed unmistakable. Within hours, broadcasters were discussing a royal rupture. Crowds gathered outside Buckingham Palace, and one newspaper transformed the private confrontation into a national question about loyalty, succession, and the future balance of the monarchy. Palace officials moved quickly, but control had already slipped away. Their statement confirmed that council procedures had been revised and that Anne remained in every royal responsibility. A council procedure was the formal process governing how internal meetings, records, and decisions were handled. The wording avoided Camilla's lost access, yet that silence only deepened suspicion. Commentators pushed beyond the family quarrel. They described a struggle over whether the present royal household could shape the authority William and Catherine would carry in the next reign. Succession meant the legal order determining who inherits the throne, but the argument now concerned something more personal: who could influence the future before it officially began. Outside a London newsstand, the Daily Chronicle carried the headline, "The King Draws the Line," above the photograph of Camilla leaving alone, while Anne stood beside Catherine. Near Buckingham Palace, a woman raised a handwritten sign reading, "Duty must not be punished." The palace was the monarch's main London residence, but that morning its gates became the center of public judgment. Some praised Charles as a sovereign. Others accused him of choosing his sister over his wife. Charles watched the coverage with the television muted. The king resented the intrusion, yet he could not deny what the photograph captured. His delay in confronting the private tensions had allowed them to become a public crisis. Catherine rejected every report calling her the victor. The Princess of Wales told William that boundaries were necessary, but humiliation would only create another wound. He agreed, though the prince still believed her voice required permanent protection. Camilla then rejected advice to remain silent. Through a signed palace statement, the queen consort accepted responsibility for presenting an unsupported motion and confirmed that Anne had defended proper procedure. Her words changed the public story because they came directly from her office, not from rumor. Charles acted before the moment could harden into permanent division. The monarch summoned Anne, Camilla, Catherine, and William to one final private meeting. No one entering that meeting could pretend the old balance of trust still remained intact. The world had witnessed the fracture, but only that room could decide whether the monarchy emerged divided or disciplined by truth. Charles entered the final meeting without the fury that had shaken the council chamber. His anger had passed, leaving something heavier: certainty. On the table lay the invalid suspension motion, Camilla's correction, Anne's clearance, and a new protocol protecting Catherine's voice. The king looked first at his sister, then at his wife, and finally at the couple who would inherit the consequences. What he said next did not erase the betrayal, but it ended the struggle over what the monarchy would become. Charles made one point clear: the gathering would not retry the argument or allow private pain to distort another decision. A protocol was a formal rule controlling how future business would be handled, and this one gave Catherine control over her representation. No council paper, household memorandum, or ceremonial proposal could claim her support without written approval from her office. Charles then turned to Anne. The king admitted that his failure to notice the growing hostility had exposed his sister to an attack she never deserved. Anne accepted the apology, but the Princess Royal reminded him that loyalty required protection before a crisis, not praise after the damage. He lowered his head and accepted the truth without defense. Camilla faced Anne and Catherine next. The queen consort admitted that she had used Catherine's absence, exaggerated Anne's actions, and allowed fear to poison a formal council process. She asked for no forgiveness. Charles ruled that his wife could return to advisory meetings after a probationary period, meaning a period in which trust had to be rebuilt. She would never again control continuity agendas, succession briefings, or invitations involving William and Catherine. Anne remained on the council and became joint guardian of its procedures with Edward. Her strengthened role was not a prize. It recognized that she had defended proper process when others tried to bypass it. Catherine stepped forward. The Princess of Wales told Camilla that forgiveness could begin, but trust would return only through actions. She offered her hand, not as surrender or triumph, but as a step away from permanent division. William watched beside her and understood that strength did not always demand punishment. Charles closed the Windsor folder and placed the false suspension motion inside it. The monarch ordered both preserved in the Royal Archive, the collection where records are kept, as proof that rank could never stand above accountability. Anne's honor had been restored. Catherine's future was protected. Camilla's power was restrained. Charles had chosen truth over silence, and the monarchy emerged disciplined rather than destroyed. Thanks for watching. Please don't forget to like and subscribe, and we will see you in next one.